You were part of the banking industry, you're part of the KPO industry, FMCG. So what drew you towards education?
Changing industries and sectors is something which I felt will help me to keep learning new areas. Secondly, I somewhere felt a calling because I thought here's an industry or a sector which is driven by EQ. There's a lot of emotional quotient out here.
Yeah.
And yet I thought I saw a slight, I don't want to say gap, but I thought there was a lot of space there for professionalism to also come in.
You are heading ARISE.
ARISE is an acronym. ARISE stands for Association for Reinventing School Education. The goal remains to create an impact in the sector for attempting to move school education into a space which ensures that no student is left behind.
Don't you feel there's a big roadblock, like talented people don't want to be associated with this industry?
So to answer your question, I certainly believe it's time to liberalize education.
We need to design schools in such a way that the focus is only on the goodness of what it brings to the table.
Some of the best people who do so much of good work in education doesn't talk about it. So blow your trumpet. If you're doing something good, talk about it, because you need to inspire the next person and the next person. It has to become viral.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Education Matters by JK. Today we are joined by Vinesh Menon, a C-suite leader with over 30 years of experience spanning K-12 education, ECCE, skill development, BFSI, FMCG and KPO. He has been awarded CEO of the Year in 2020 and Mairichi Award by Union Minister of Education. Currently, he serves as Director General and CEO of ARISE, where he continues his mission to influence and strengthen India's school education ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Vinesh Menon. Vinesh, thank you very much. We've been trying to do this for some time now. So finally, here we are.
I know. Thank you so much, Jitendra.
Thank you. No, thanks to you for taking the invitation, accepting the invitation, and coming. You are I don't know if veteran will make you sound old, so I'm not going to use the word veteran. But you have lots of experience in the industry. You've done some amazing work. But before we get straight into education, I know you have a very interesting backstory. You were part of the banking industry, you're part of the KPO industry, FMCG. So what drew you towards education?
Yeah. No, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I don't think I'm a veteran by any means, not from an age perspective, but sure, there's so much more I need to do, and there's so many more folks out there who are far, far more experienced than I am. But it's an interesting question, and I guess this is the first question that I get asked. So one, I must tell you that I am by nature a bit of an adventurer. Mm-hmm. For me, my entire working career has been designed around wanting to learn and seek knowledge as much as I can.
Yeah.
Number one. And I'm also someone who's a little, I don't want to say allergic, but I'm not very fond of monotony. So changing industries and sectors is something which I felt will help me to keep learning new areas. And that's how I started with FMCG, moved into banking, did a small stint in KPO. And then around 12 years back, I saw a very exciting sector, which is the school education sector. And I decided to jump into that. Now, why did I do that? Again, so this is one reason, because I just wanted to change sectors and find out what is the areas which I can learn. But secondly, I noticed that India was at an inflection point, and the education sector was starting to look so exciting. There was so much of transformation happening. The generation shifts are starting to be so clearly evident. And I think the way India started to grow, I realized that education is a very, very important, critical part of it. And I somewhere felt a calling because I thought here's an industry or a sector which is driven by EQ. There's a lot of emotional quotient out here.
Yeah.
And yet I thought I saw a slight, I don't want to say gap, but I thought there was a lot of space there for professionalism to also come in. And I pretty much had a mix of both. I thought of myself as a professional with an EQ, and I thought that is an area which can draw me. The third reason is some two live examples that I saw. I saw, when I was in the banking and investment sector, the banking BFSI as you call it, I saw, a lot of these financial products being sold without much ethics. And I saw some elderly folks, a lot of people who are not able to understand the financial products, getting, for want of any other word, fooled into picking up products without realizing its long-term repercussions. And that is directly proportional to education, not really knowing. I mean, India is the least underserved market in insurance. There's hardly anyone who understands financial planning as much as one should in India. And these are all related to education. And I thought that's something which I picked up as a very important, I just saw that as a gap. And I thought, why not try and see if I can do something there. Then I also saw in a railway station, a chap sitting on the counter of the railway station giving X rupees, $100 I think he gave, of whatever he gave. And the change he got is far lesser than what he should have got. And he didn't know it because he didn't know how to count. And he just started walking off. And I, for some reason, was standing 2 people behind, and I saw this. And I stopped him and I said, "Aapka change, aapko mila nahi." And I realized that he's just illiterate. Basic education. So I just felt there's so much that can be done in this space. It just became and I was also lucky. I ran into a few of my old, earlier entrepreneurs who had built the KPO sector. They called me to start a school chain, and that's how I, went there.
So if you can share, which is the school chain that you started? If you
It
can
is
share
called
with the audience here.
It is called Global Discovery Schools. The organization is called Global Discovery Academy.
Okay.
And it is budget schools. We decided to have schools in the tier 2 and tier 3 sector, areas, and decided to get into a space where aspiration level for a fee structure of 50 to 75,000 a year, but still giving them what they would like for a school to give in the urban space. So yeah, that is how it all started.
And that was your first stint.
Yeah, and that was a stint which got me to do it right ground up. It was all greenfield schools. So right from identifying the space, the land, the learning space and design, the enrollments, the teacher training, hiring, everything. It was
You had
like
to build
9
it from
yards.
ground up.
Yeah. So
Everything.
great learning.
Yeah.
I couldn't have got a better learning.
And I'm sure you must be having a lot of stories if you started with tier 2, tier 3 cities, because I know at one problem I completely understand in this country is accessibility, right? People don't have access to high quality education, and that's what you were trying to bring over there. But I'm sure you learned a few things in that. I can tell you when I go to a tier 2 city, what are the problems that I face. But I want to know what were the problems that you faced from, getting a service over there is good, but how do you dispense that service? Because, your entire support system is almost non-existent in a smaller
No, yeah,
town.
absolutely. I genuinely believe we were a little ahead of our times, because what we attempted to do then was to create a standardized process across multiple cities. So a school inside deep Punjab would be similar to a school inside Indore, would be similar to a school in Coimbatore. But the fact is that that's not how it's going to work. Your localization and customization is very important.
Correct.
And that is something that you learned later. And these were, of course, schools which were associated with local investors and their asset owners.
Was it franchise based or it was?
Well,
all
it is not really
company
franchise
operated?
because it was company run, but the infrastructure was owned by the local investor.
Local investors.
So we would have someone who has the land and the financial strength for a building, but instead of setting up a warehouse or instead of setting up a residential complex, he decided to set up a school. And the entire running of the school, right from the brand down to the last wire, was given to us for a certain management fee. And one would want to try and drive similar color schemes across the country. But the guy in Punjab would just want it very different from the guy in Coimbatore.
Yeah.
So that's a learning. The other very interesting learning was, we attempted to bring in this whole experiential learning, and we wanted to move away from rote. And that also meant a very different kind of teaching, and teachings which do not encourage poetry, saying and all that. So one day in one of the parent-teacher meetings, a parent came to us, and a Punjabi parent, and she said, ये सब तो ठीक है, लेकिन मेरे किटी पार्टी में मेरी बेटी को कुछ नहीं आता था पोएट्री बोलना. And other parents had the kids saying it, and they actually blamed us for not teaching them rote. So these are interesting mindsets that you start seeing in that space.
So this was about 12, 13 years back, right? When you just started and, you were trying to understand the industry better. you're still part of the industry, now in a different avatar, but you're still part of the,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much part of the industry, and we'll talk about that part a
Sure.
little later. But do you see any change now in terms of the mindset of the parents, even teachers? I'm sure when you were opening in the hinterland, getting the right teachers or the right sort of staff was it difficult that time?
Interestingly, getting teachers in the in the hinterland of India is not so tough. Apologies, I got a bad throat. So, getting teachers in the hinterland of India is not very tough. I think what is important is that these teachers, the real question in India is teaching a preferred profession or is it a default profession? So, most of the teachers who came to teach did not necessarily choose teaching. They just came to teach because it suited their environment. That I think is a common problem which is across the country, and that perhaps needs to change. I think an educator, an academician, and look at it, right? These are the people who really shape everybody's lives. They, I think, need to be we have to figure out some way to give them some kind of a trajectory, which makes them realize that okay, at the end of this, I would be this.
See, it makes me jump straight into the policy advocacy part. I think it's too early in the podcast to be talking about this, but I can't resist. What you're saying is correct. About people not getting enough salaries or people choosing it because it's convenient rather than it's my passion. And I think part of the reason people choose it is because I stay close by, I'll finish my work early, there are many holidays, there are various factors. And every time I speak to an educator, everybody has this thing that we need to pay our teachers better, we need to train them better, all that, and more people need to. But I think it's a non-glam industry. Teaching, there's nothing. We've not made teaching wow for a girl or for a guy who's getting out of college to feel wow, I want to be a teacher. There are no great role models. Correct me, but I don't see it as cool as being even a failed startup founder is looked at in a very glamorous way than a teacher who's really doing a good job for many years. So I think apart from the money part, apart from the other things that we need to do, I think the glam quotient is missing. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much we can attribute glam to it and what can we do to make it glamorous, but I think it's important to recognize them more. I think we have to figure out ultimately in India there is this whole concept of jo dikta hai wo bikta hai, right? That's what it
yeah.
is. So I think you need to celebrate these folks much more,
So
and that will
that is
start to
where the glam comes in, right? If we start celebrating our teachers, if we start putting on them on a pedestal, and we'll talk about the industry body that you are heading right now, and how you can come up with, or
Yeah.
collectively everybody from the industry can
Yeah.
come up and start celebrating our teachers
Yeah.
a little bit more, so that it becomes slightly glamorous. People will look forward to
Yeah, I agree.
doing
And
it.
to answer your previous question also, is it changed over the years? I think it's changing. I think you can definitely see a change. I mean, the fact is today you have far more, let's say, conferences, conclaves,
Correct.
meets, teachers get together, principals get together, they
Correct.
talk, they exchange ideas, they discuss things, they
Hmm.
have fun.
Hmm.
I think all that was missing in the past, and I think
Yeah.
that's starting to change. Secondly, I think the learning opportunity for the teachers is also growing. I mean, look at what's tech doing to teachers, right? How much they're starting to pick up these things. I think that's also been something which is starting to make a change. And let's not forget the post-COVID era. That
Yeah.
COVID era became a pretty much of a milestone, right? I mean, the whole concept of school buildings have shut, schools have not shut.
Yeah.
And the fact that teachers are around to teach you irrespective of the fact that everybody is shut out, I think that has made a significant change in the understanding of what a teacher is.
Yeah,
And
and I was one of the panels during just post COVID, and we had a government representative, and we were talking about changes, and he said, in our industry, education industry, everything is one step at a time. And I was the only guy who sort of said, I disagree, because what COVID has taught us is that when push comes to shove, we changed overnight. Everybody went online. From how do we train teachers? Teachers got trained themselves because most of them are very passionate about the job that they're doing, right?
Correct.
Majority of them. And you see the changes, and you're right, it all connects, right? Post-COVID, I think the way people started looking at education has completely changed. And thanks to all the teachers and the people on ground, right?
Correct.
I mean, we as managers or from the management side, we did our bit, but the driving force was the ground force.
I still remember because this is fresh in my mind. We had Group Captain Subhanshu Shukla, who's the ISRO astronaut who came down after spending a lot of time in space, and he went to his alumni, his school where he studied, and he spent they covered his being there. I think it was City Montessori School, and he spent time with his teachers there, and you should see the joy on the teachers' faces. When they know that, hey, look, one of us has done this. Now the point is, Group Captain Shukla got coverage. There could be so many such alums around the world, which, eventually you need to somehow keep reminding the world that this alum happened, or this person happened to do this because of the connect that he or she had with this teacher.
Correct.
Keep celebrating this. And how many times have we gone back to our schools and gone there and said that, look, this is what I do today, and thank you so much.
No, guilty. Even I haven't done it. So I think we need to, before I think I preach or I say about how I think I need to personally go and thank some of my teachers. And
and that's when they'll feel good.
I think it's a great point. And, I have small rituals that I keep adding to my list as I'm growing older, that, these are the things I have to do no matter what. Like my Sunday coffee with select few friends. I think I'm going to add this. So thank you for this advice, and I'll definitely go and meet my teachers.
And you can add me to your Sunday list of coffees.
But you'll have to fly down to Bombay.
Yeah, sure.
But whenever you're in Bombay, we can do that. So, Vinesh, then you also were with I don't know if we can talk about the brands you were associated with, right? Or
but I wouldn't want to go too deep into it. But you can. Yeah.
So you were with one of the brands. You ran many schools, like went into few hundreds of K-12 schools. They also had a PPP model where you had taken over some government schools and you were helping them. Do you want to talk about especially the PPP part?
Yeah, I mean, look, it is a great education institution with a very visionary chairman, and the chairman felt that apart from running what we call as independent self-financed schools or private schools, it will also make sense for us to figure out if there is a way that we can work with the government and transform their schools. Now, the fact is, the government, if you just look at India from a pure numbers perspective, there are close to 1.5 million government schools, and close to about 14 odd crore kids, 140 million kids going there. And it's a place where there is so much that can be done, and yet it's not getting done for many reasons. And we don't want to get deep into that. But the fact is, they have the budgets, they have the infrastructure. But what is really required in schooling is a complete shift in the way education is taught. The software needs to change, and that's why we thought, is there an opportunity out here for an existing school organization to also work with the government schools to try and make a change? Now, this change could be in multiple areas. It could be in areas of construction to just put up basic buildings. It could be areas of digital transformation. It could be teacher training. It could be training for students in self-defense. It could be so many areas, and that is how it all started. And he's doing pretty well now.
How many schools were you running under the PPP model?
See, running a school doesn't mean it's sustained forever. There could be all kinds of models. There are some schools that we adopted to run them for a period of time. There are some schools where we did a certain project and then we came out of it. But if you look at everything together, I think it would have clearly crossed about 80 to 90,000 schools.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah, but look at it as if the denominators put there, it looks nothing, right? 90,000 on 11 lakhs. So
yeah,
that's people don't realize the size, diversity, and the problems that India faces. And this is something that one organization cannot do. We have to figure out some way to change this part of the system. Because if we do not change this part, I think it's going to cause a lot of imbalance in the days to come.
See, I get where you're coming from. I personally, I feel, we have a lot to do. If I can give my time from my schedule, I would happily want to do that. But the larger question is, and this is a dual question, right? So there are two parts to this question. Uh, so one is, I know the will is there. I know, the current government has done a lot of stuff, in infrastructure, in defense. You have some solid people who really want India to be a developed country. And we can't become a developed country until and unless our education sector is truly empowered, right? Now, the first part is, if you want the sector to do well, I don't call it industry, I always call it a sector, because it's not an industry. Industry means it has to be for profit. So my first question is, I understand that the government, or it's enshrined in our constitution, that education has to be free, right? Or not for profit. Let's not call it free, not for profit. And then if we really want this sector to do well, and if you really want the right talent to come in, if there's going to be no good payout, then why would a person like me, or more brilliant people than me, who would otherwise do some other startup, don't you feel there's a big roadblock? Like, talented people don't want to be associated with this industry because they feel that, yes, I can get some brownie points and I can earn some good karma, but ultimately there's economic compulsions. I have to run a house, I have to run a company, and so what are your views on that? Do you think the current model will help us reach our goal of developed country?
So you're putting me in a spot. Okay, no, but let's get this out with, right? Let's call the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The fact is, I think lots needs to be done in this space. If you ask me, at some level, I sometimes feel that education is in the ICU, and we need to get it out of it.
Yeah.
And my starting point is, we have I don't want to get down to discussing different governments. I don't want to get into the political space now. But currently, as we talk, there is a certain line that is floating around, which is to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047. And 2047 is about 22 odd years from today.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to make Bharat Viksit in 2047, you need human beings, citizens of this country, who makes India Viksit.
Yeah.
Now, a proper adult of 2047 is someone who's currently either at ground zero at 1 or 2 years, or who's about 5-6 years, and who has to undergo that 14 years of schooling and another few years of higher ed.
Correct.
And then become a citizen.
Correct.
So if we do not act on it now,
then it's going to
we
be
may not be able to achieve that Viksit Bharat by 2047, at least from a human resource point of view, and everything is about human resources.
Yeah.
So I think that is the fundamental start. And there, I think we need to do something to disrupt the system. Just as how India got, look at the disruptions we've created in the unified payment space. Look at the disruption we have created in tech. Look at the disruption. Infrastructure is going through a lot of disruptive changes. The number of airports that are coming up. Healthcare is going through its change. So I think there is
every sector, you name the sector, it's going through some sort of reform.
Correct.
Right? Or disruption.
Correct.
And I think education is one sick child that nobody wants to touch.
Yeah, so let's find out why is that. Because obviously human beings, child, these are all very, very emotional. To a parent, nothing is more important than the child and the child's life, which is starting with education. And thanks to National Education Policy 2020, I think we also realize that now everybody realizes that the first 7 years of a child's life is very important. The neurons, the synapses, etc. And therefore, I think everybody understands the problem now. Now, how do you go about executing it? I think there are some fundamental, probably we need to look inwards and understand the problem statement here. I think we are going through a bit of a one-size-fits-all kind of a model.
Yeah.
Right? India is so huge. We are talking about schools which are obviously free because it's for the EWS kids. We are talking about schools with budget fee structures of hardly about $2,000-3,000 a month. We're talking about schools that have all the way up to 6 lakhs and 8 lakhs a year. We're talking about at least about 50 boards in India. We're talking about NIOS.
In terms of fees, there are schools in urban spaces which go more than 15-20 lakh a year.
There you are.
Right.
So now, in such a scenario, how can that one regulatory framework fit all?
Yeah.
And that is where, and it's wonderful that we are having education as a concurrent subject, which means it is really down to the state. But I think the state needs to understand this, and the center needs to back this fundamental model. So to answer your question, I certainly believe it's time to liberalize education.
Yeah.
It is time to work on a model where there is incentives for folks to choose education as a I was about to say industry, and I'm very conscious that you told me not to. But I think you need to choose it. And I know some I know some friends who are just, IIT graduates who decided to choose education as their calling instead of going to a corporate.
Yeah.
Now, how many more folks can come into the space? That is what is needed.
Yeah.
So I think we are getting to a space where we need to be very clear that there are multiple kinds of education models that can run in India concurrently.
Yeah, right? Because India is not a homogeneous country. Every state has its own nuances. Every culture, which comes with that state has, different needs, and again, demographics. It is a huge divide. Some people are living a life which is equivalent to a developed country, right? And some people are still struggling for basics. So I understand when the government decides on something, they have to find the least common denominator, and then they have to say, okay, I want to make something for these people because even they need access. And I get it from that perspective that every child needs to have access to education. That is non-negotiable, right?
Correct.
So everybody needs to get that. But the other question is, and this is based on what you're saying, if a child, let's twist it a little bit, okay? So if a child is extremely intelligent, and if you're giving him first grade books and the child can do second grade book or subjects, will you stop that child? We will not, right? In a real world, if somebody wants to do something better, we'll always encourage them. But the way we design our school system is that even if somebody wants to do better, it's like, no, you have to be at this level. You can't go beyond it because there are restrictions on fees. There are restrictions on so many things. So I feel liberalization is, I think, the most apt word that you've used. And I think just as we have choices for everything, right from what clothes we choose. I mean, it's another example. We have something called public distribution system where people get food through it, right?
Yeah.
And some of it is free. So people who can't afford it, they can go and take that. But if you can afford it, you have the free market and you can access whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I think liberalization from that point of view and recognizing it like it's okay because there's a market for everybody.
That's
right?
I think that's a key point. So you mentioned that education for all compulsory. Absolutely, it's also important to ensure that parents don't get. It's also very important to not let parents get the feeling that they are being squeezed for unnecessary fees in an area which is so important for their child. So we need to create that balance. But I like your statement of least common denominator. You see, look at the hotel industry, look at the healthcare industry. These are all places where there are some basics which everybody needs to follow. So a hotel of, let's say, X rupees a room night, and a hotel which is a 5-star or a 7-star or Y rupees a room night. There are some basic things that are there in both. Hygiene, good food,
correct,
right? Food quality. Yeah. You need to have clean linen, basic stuff. You need to have an infrastructure, fire safety norms. So keep that. Then start letting the consumer decide where he wants or she wants to go.
Correct.
Right? Then you decide, okay, I can afford a 7-star hotel and therefore let me take that up.
Yeah.
Whereas I cannot afford this, let me take this up, let me take a medium-sized hotel. And I think that's what is happening even in hospitals. Yeah. So similarly, in education, perhaps you need to probably have 3 kinds of education models. Of course, you have the EWS model, which is for the government, philanthropic models. But there's also a model that can allow fees to be taken or for profit to be driven, so long as there is a connect with the other side. I do not subscribe to the fact that if tomorrow, hypothetically, there is a school that makes profit, or let's say it's become liberalized and you can, but to not bother about the have-nots is dangerous. So we got to figure out some model where,
just as corporates are, there's a CSR connected to corporates.
Yes.
education, institutions, there could be a system like that. I mean, RET, right to education, right?
RT.
RTE was something which was good, but there were loopholes in that, and people practice it loosely. They don't practice. Good thought, but impractical, on ground, because also policymakers sometimes need to understand is that I will send my child to a school where I feel my child will be comfortable, right? Even if I have the money, even if I can afford it, I'm not going to send my child to a school which is extremely expensive, where the lifestyle of all the children are going to be very different, because that will impact my child in a negative way, right? And we see this,
Yeah, that depends on who you are as a parent.
No, but it does. For as a parent, I'll give you an example. My friend he's a business owner, does very well in life, not a car enthusiast. Okay, sends his only son to a great school. Son refused to come with him in the car, saying that if you don't buy a Merc or a BMW, don't even come to pick me up. So, nice child, there's no problem with the child, but the other children then start bullying them, right? Oh, you can't even afford a. So, RTE practically becomes very difficult, because children coming from different social background, it really impacts them. I'm sure you must have had so many stories on ground. If you don't come from a certain social strata, then there is a negative impact on the children as well. The way they are treated, the way the way they are made to feel in the school. That's why I advocate free market. To give you another, you're taking your hotel example, right? Do you think that hotels are inaccessible to common people at any point of time? Anybody wants to get a hotel room will get a hotel room.
Yeah, that's what I said. You have all kinds.
Right, all kinds. So if you liberalize it, I don't think so. These 30 lakh, 40 lakh, 50 lakh, whatever, it's because the system is designed in such a way that it helps the ultra premium school. But if you liberalize it, then you'll have every price point, and then parents will choose the best out of what they can afford, and not.
No, I agree, but again, that's also, so just to play devil's advocate as to what could go wrong. Just as any other industry or sector has got its share of bad apples in a basket, if school leaders or school owners decide to take advantage of this and start becoming, for want of any other word, greedy, then it's also not fair. Because you see, that's the whole thing. The average Indian consumer, data has it that they spend about close to 14 to 16% of their income on education. Now, let's assume I decide to get into a school for X rupees of fees, and all of a sudden during the yearly move, X becomes X plus plus plus. Now I'm in a spot because I need that education for my child. I'm hooked onto the school. My child is hooked onto the school, but hey, I can't afford this money. And that is also not the best thing to do. So we need to create some kind of a mid path and get that going.
Definitely, I think taking care of bad actors in any industry is easier part. But punishing the entire industry, or shackling the whole industry, I think that is something that policymakers need to think, and we as people from the sector, we need to do, and we need to go ahead and start speaking more freely about this.
I think that's happening now. I think the last decade and a half, and I think continuously now with lots of associations, industry bodies like ourselves, I think it is starting to. I think that conversation is starting to move. In fact, I'm not going to name him. Whoever is hearing me is going to know who it is. But I know of a very, very senior bureaucrat who used to be the Secretary of Education, Government of India, who was actually, he actually positioned the education sector of the country as a mafia which is above the ground.
I know.
Right?
I was there. I was there in that conference.
Yes, and to give credit to this gentleman, after sitting and opening his mind and listening to a lot of the school leaders, owners who went and met him, delegations went to meet him, representations happened, they explained to him what they're trying to do. He is today completely aligned. He understands what this is all about. And he's taken that word back. But the fact is, there are some who still spoil this. So that is, I think the intent is very important. Money can be a byproduct, but the intent is very important.
Correct.
if your intent is to figure out a way to jip money off because it's a must do for a child and the parent has an emotional reason that the child must go for education, that's not fair. So it's that the thin line has to be crossed.
Yeah, but I want to let's not get more deep into it because I don't want to sound very negative. But clothes are also important for a child or an adult. That doesn't mean that people are scheming other people and squeezing every penny out of it. There's market for everything. The minute it liberalizes, everything gets settled right now because there are restrictions. People find loopholes within, and this mafia thing. I agree that yes, there are certain bad actors who treat, I don't know if I want to say this, but they treat it as a washing machine. Schools become a washing machine for them. So they know how to churn their black money into white money and put it into the system. So of course there are so many wrong things happening, but just because few people are doing wrong things, I think entire industry should not be penalized. And just from the point of view that this is the most crucial part of Make in India. I understand all the schemes that the government is doing, but for Viksit Bharat to happen, education is the most critical piece, and if that is not tackled, as you said, right now, then I don't think so we are going to reach there. So coming back to, I think we went a little bit more serious and negative. So let's come back to the policy advocacy part. You are heading Arise, right? So you want to talk about that because I think some of the audience might not know what it is. Of course, the industry body would know, but parents and teachers and people from the sector.
No, I think ARISE is an acronym. ARISE stands for Association for Reinventing School Education. It is India's only sectoral body that is focused on school education, and it was incubated in FICCI, which is India's largest and oldest industry chamber body.
Correct.
It was born, ARISE was born about 8-9 years back in FICCI. It got formed because a lot of progressive school leaders, well-meaning school promoters and entrepreneurs felt that this sector also needs a voice, and it is important that the sector is understood in the right framework by key stakeholders, be it the government, be it academia, and that's how it is born. 9 years hence, it is also felt that it is such a complex sector that you need autonomy for this body, and hence ARISE became autonomous, independent, and today it is a Section 12A ATG compliant non-government not-for-profit body, and continues to get backed by FICCI because FICCI does not have any other school sectoral body of its own. ARISE is its body exclusively. And ARISE has got primarily two broad purposes. One is to work closely with the government as a voice of the sector to bring in strategic interventions into policy, regulatory framework, and anything that is designed around the platform, which the regulatory platform of the country, both at a central level as well as states. And secondly, ARISE is attempting to create a knowledge ecosystem, continuously build knowledge ecosystems by converging academia, government, and industry. And when I say knowledge ecosystems, it could be knowledge events, it could be knowledge papers, it could be knowledge conclaves, it could be connecting to the global knowledge platforms to bring in what's happening out there into the country. It could be areas related to the technology revolution, AI, it could be areas related to mental wellness, it could be areas related to learning spaces, it could be areas related to data privacy. All these areas are knowledge for the sector. And by default, because it's an industry body, it's got members. Members are schools, school promoters, and therefore it also forms a very beautiful platform for members to interact with each other, network, understand learnings. A school sitting in Jammu and Kashmir can get to understand what's happening in Delhi, or in Tamil Nadu can get to understand what's happening in Karnataka. And the sector is driven by multiple regulatory movements. It's quite dynamic. You have circulars coming out from the government every now and then. You've got compliances which are quite complex. You've got lots of litigations which are in play, court rulings which are still WIP. So if I were to understand these things, I need someone to to be there as a body which can offer this
which
voice.
which
So Arise does that, and it's I think it's a great place for school owners and school promoters. And now we've even started the Principals Forum. So on one side we have the school promoters, but we have also created the Principals Forum for academic leaders and principals to get value added by the Arise network.
Nice. You've not added preschools yet.
Right now it is for K-12 schools.
K-12 schools.
It does include preschools which are attached
to
the main school, but independent preschools not yet. We have not touched the higher education yet. I think right now there's so much to be done in the K-12 space, but you never know. I mean, these are all obviously
and
connected.
K-12 is the more formal part of the ecosystem anyways, right? Because there are anyways every state has a regulation for K-12.
Yeah.
Preschools were still very loosely governed.
But that's not the reason. I think the reason is not to do with regulatory lack of it. And by the way, regulations are coming into preschool in some places. But I think it's more to do with just focus. School education was getting ignored. School education sector was a sector that required a lot of attention, and that's exactly what we have attempted to do. And look at it, every sector has got a body and a voice. The real estate has got CREDAI. There's an All India Internet and Mobile Association of India. There is an association for automobile components. There is NASCOM for IT and ITES.
Correct.
So why should you not have it for school education? It's as simple as that. And in a country, Jitendra, where you've got close to 50% of our children population going to private schools. Unlike other parts of the world, where it's in single digits.
Yeah.
So that's the size and the extent of why this is so important.
I think it's a great initiative. It's been what, 3 years, 4 years since the association was formed?
No. The association was formed nearly 9 years back in FICCI.
Okay.
It's got independent just about a year back.
Okay.
And like I mentioned, you have the formal board. There is an executive, which is a secretariat, which is what I represent, and you also have a governing body, which represents the sector. And the governing body is, comprising of very, very senior school entrepreneurs and promoters. And it's a governing body that goes through rotation every year. So every year you have a new president, just like how it happens in any other whether it's the ASSOCHAM or PSD or CII or FICCI. That's what happens. So.
Nice. So Vinesh, you told me, some of the things that arise as, of course, policy advocacy that you said, seminars, bringing everybody together, knowledge exchange. But do you have, or does Arise have a short-term vision, like we want to achieve this in the next 2 years, this is what we want to do in the next 5 years, and this is where we want to take the entire sector? Are there any goals like that?
Yeah, look, I mean, as an industry body, it's very important to understand that this is not a for-profit revenue-driving organization. It's an industry body. And as an industry body, we are here for the industry, for the sector. And therefore, we are attempting to see what the sector needs. So let's look at what the sector needs. We talked about liberalization of education. So if you ask me, at some level, I would like to have that change brought in for an impact in the sector. Can I do that through Arise? And everybody else who's working along with Arise, it'll be great. Then we also discussed about how RTE is a great model, but there are so many small flaws in RTE that needs to be corrected. Right? So can Arise try and see how that can be talked about and worked on? Number 3, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are 2 states in this country which allow companies to set up schools. You don't need to be a society or a trust. The states allow the companies to set up schools. But one of the very, very large boards of the country, examination board, does not affiliate the school because they're saying it's from a company and therefore it's for profit and therefore it doesn't meet RTE. Now, there are very clear reasons to show that that's not the case because it's a state legislature versus the central act and so on and so forth. So can Arise try and help in that area? The whole discussion around coaching institutes and the fact that coaching institute is good, but the fact is that lots of students are leaving 11th and 12th grade and moving to coaching institutes. And that's causing a lot of hurt to the sector. So can Arise work on trying to see how to solve that problem? Can Arise try to... So these cannot be measured in how fast you can do it. It might take 1 year, it might take 3 years, it might take 7 years. I don't know. But all I do know is that if the government, which is a policy maker, is able to constantly understand what the pain points are, and there are solutions which we can attempt to give them through the voice of the industry or the sector, then I think they are open to listening, because I think the government is also undergoing a massive metamorphosis in terms of wanting to make a change. Let's take deregulation, for example. There is a whole deregulation committee that has been set up under the Prime Minister's office to try and drive in deregulation in the country and to make what they call as ease of business in both at a state and a central level. Now, education is never a part of it, but it is now. And then there is a deregulation committee that's also focusing on school education. And ARISE is representing the sector, and we've been pretty much there talking about it. Many of our school members and doyens of the sector, a lot of the very, very respected school promoters have been part of these conversations. So all this is happening, and therefore if you ask me what is ARISE's short-term goal, the goal remains to create an impact in the sector for attempting to move school education into a space which ensures that no student is left behind. That's our tagline. No student to be left behind.
So first goal is accessibility. Everybody needs to get access to education.
No, I don't want to, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to position that as the goal.
Yeah,
The goal is to make the sector progress, to make independent private schools and government schools to coexist, right? To ensure that regulatory framework is such that it can encourage more and more people to bring in schools and to start schools, to encourage many, many youngsters to open schools as an option of, let's call it, as a career, to make teaching a very, very preferred profession. So all this in some form leads to accessibility and all the other things that you just talked about.
Everything is tied, right? If schools have to be set up in a certain way, then our teachers will never get the sort of salaries that they deserve, administrators, so you'll never be able to attract the right sort of people to the entire sector. So I mean it's really great, and I wish ARISE the best, and
Thank you.
whatever way we can align and bring it to the media, through podcast or whatever, I'll be more than happy to
thank you
work
so much.
on that.
That's appreciative.
Yeah. And
you're talking about, sorry to cut you, you're talking about the medium and long term, and somewhere in the discussion we talked about CSR.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have CSR come in. Now, while CSR is obviously touching upon various areas and areas that are required, perhaps it's time to push an advocacy for bringing in a certain compulsory 25% of the 2.5% only for education.
Yeah.
So maybe ARISE can attempt to push that as an important voice in the government.
Correct.
Right? Or figure out how maybe ARISE can become that aggregating body to bring in the gap and the demand and the supply. We know that there is money available for CSR, and we know where the government schools are suffering. So maybe we can bring them together.
Correct. Yeah.
Or help incubate startups in education services. So there are so many things that can be. So, like I said, the short term is impact in the way I say. The medium and long term could be anything to continue to do this.
Yeah. So I understand. The pressing matters will be picked up first, and long term vision, obviously.
That's correct. Yeah.
To create a system which works for as diverse country as ours, where no child is left behind, getting the right quality, not only just accessibility to education, but getting the right quality, right? Because that is also another issue. And finally, if we can truly, because world over, when people say Nordic schools this, or a developed nation teaches in a certain way, then that quality of education also needs to come to India, and it needs to come to India very quickly. So, the other part which fascinates me personally a lot, because in my previous avatar, I've also worked with tech, and that's continues to be a love and interest. Do you see schools using and you worked with both, right? You're working with private, you worked with government schools or aided schools. Do you see there's a big tech gap in both? Yeah.
Clearly, but it's changing, slow and steady.
Yeah.
And I think one example that I want to bring forth is during COVID, when schools needed to start teaching through tech. There were a lot of government schools also which started to look at how they can do this.
Yeah.
For the first time, teachers started downloading Chrome.
Hmm.
Basic downloading of Chrome was not known to them.
Hmm.
And they were getting taught to do that. So I think it is happening.
Yeah.
But this is the interesting part, and this is where I think one needs to be slightly, I do not have an answer because I'm not sitting in the seat of the government. Today, if you look at the education budget of the country, and I'm talking about the government schools, I think 80 to 90% of the budget is spent on salaries. The 7th pay commission, the 8th pay commission. So there's pretty much pretty little money available for innovation, for
Yeah.
technology. And I think there has to be some method to get that sorted out. There has to be some method to try and drive accessibility of digital devices through better pricing. There has to be some method to get the last child, maybe satellites to be brought in such a manner that you create a hub and spoke model. There's so many things that can be done. And I think that needs to be somewhere, maybe the IT minister and the education minister sit down together and
Yeah.
figure out what to do.
Because tech is going to be extremely important, right, component in this, taking it to the remotest part of the country, right? Because today, a city child can access whatever information he or she wants from any part of the world, and it's possible because they have that 5G connection on their phone, and
Yeah.
parents, or Wi-Fi at home, high-speed Wi-Fi, and they can. And for a child, you can give them school, but if you don't give them these tech tools, to keep up, then again, I don't think so. What we are trying to achieve as a country, we'll be able to achieve.
That's correct. But if you really look at it deep, first of all, I'm told nearly 90 to 99% of our districts are covered by 5G already.
Yeah.
Okay. I think companies like RailTel are setting up very very strong network fiber lines in the system, and they get connected through railway lines. And I'll mention why I'm saying this. Government has got lots of programs like Swayam Prabha. There are programs which, in fact, it was even highlighted in the UN. I think one of the India's initiatives. I forgot what it is, but it is highlighted how technology inside the government is starting to improve. The recent budget put an outlay of nearly 500 crores to create a center of excellence for AI for education. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there is an additional secretary ranked government officer who is kept to integrate AI into education, into the government.
Yeah.
So it's all happening, but like you said, it's so huge and it's so wide. Unless you take it up in smaller blocks and move that, it'll have a problem.
Yeah, because we are looking at a country which is so big that, and again with language barriers, cultural barriers, how the way it has to be more localized everywhere. So I'm very happy that all these things are already happening, and this is not something that they have to think 5 years from now. They're already thinking about it. Just a matter of getting the implementation correct. So
that is a key,
yeah.
And I think that is exactly why I believe it's a tricky topic, but public-private partnership in education perhaps is a very important area that can be explored. Maybe very different models, but figure out a way where, look at what's happening. The independent, self-financed private sector schools have adapted technology so fast.
Yeah.
And there is a much better way of positioning technology in private schools. Why is it not happening? So I think there must be some way to twin these two.
Yeah. In my mind, the answer is very, very simple, right? Of course, there'll be more steps to it, but PPP is the best way to take it and liberalize it, as you said, up to a certain extent, right? Don't do profiteering, right? And don't exploit. But if you get the right PPP model, I think whatever we are planning to do, there are enough motivated people in our country. If you give them the opportunity, they will come up with the best ideas. But right now, everybody feels that education is that's one sector nobody wants to touch, right? So we need to attract more people in this sector, more younger people with great ideas. I think it'll.
Yeah, I agree.
Implementation will become easier because they'll come up with the.
Correct. I don't know if you recollect, but in the medical space, every doctor has to spend some time in the village.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe it's time to have every educator or every child who's learning to also go and spend some time in the areas which. Then you will realize the gap between how lucky urban and tier 1 schooling system is compared to what happens in tribal schools and all those places. So I think once you realize this, then you start looking for solutions. I think the reality is not hit. I mean, how many people have gone to a tribal school and seen that there are schools without a wall where wild boars can come in and gorge a kid?
Yeah.
Right? And there are a lot of these examples which are very, very humbling to watch. And I think once you see that is when you will start wanting to share, to connect, and then I think then it will start making that difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, the tech piece and the AI piece, if you're saying it's already been thought of, then I'm sure, if we get some more, as we said, young people who can go out in the hinterland, figure it out, what's happening, how their struggles are, I'm sure we get more ideas. Vinesh, so one major policy shift that you would bring about if you were given a free hand. Hey, Vinesh, uh, you know, take charge. I want this, education, the problems to be solved, and I'm giving you one major policy. You have the right to change one policy. First of all, is it possible changing the system in
Yeah,
one
it's a very
policy?
hypothetical question because one, I do not know what happens inside the other side of the table. You need to really understand that because there's so many complications there too.
Yeah.
Having said that, and I don't think you can really make a change with that one policy shift. Of course, one policy shift, I could easily say liberalize education. But then that could be the great big bang change.
Yeah.
But that may not be as simple as one thinks. But I think there are so many, let's get practical. NEP is a great document, which came
Agreed.
after 3
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah.
But implementation of the NEP is suspect. So perhaps if maybe a start point could be to pick up the low-hanging fruit, get the document to start getting implemented in some form. One of the aspects of NEP was to have an SSSA, a triple SA or an NSSA, a National School Standard Authority, or a State School Standard Authority in place, so that you can have an independent authority that looks at regulating the school sector. Today, the current regulator is also an operator. So that needs to change. So that's an area that I might want to kind of push through. I think small little areas like trying to make teaching a preferred profession, trying to see what can we do to emulate the Finnish kind of a model, and so there are many. So I think yeah. Again, you put me on the spot by asking me one shift. I think the one shift could be to simply relook at the way the framework is run today. Just as we talked, I mean, liberalize the whole sector.
Yeah. 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 The idea was that because you speak to so many people from the operator side, right? School owners and principals, and there must be one thing that bothers everyone. That's the most common problem, and if you could solve that, then maybe 50% of all the problems disappear. It was more from that.
No,
that
I
point
agree.
of view.
So like I said, nothing. Let's look at RTE. Nobody's denying the fact that RTE should be there.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
It's a great legislation.
But the RTE at a state level indicates that you better the school has to get compensated for doing this. That's not coming through.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, if that happens, there'll be some problems that will go away. Then there is another ask that RTE is supposed to ideally work on a model where at a certain distance, you first exhaust the seats of the government schools, then the government aided schools, and then if there are still children who require schooling, you bring them to the private schools. But that's not what is happening today in many states.
Correct.
So that's a problem statement.
Yeah.
Right? Problem statement is also when a promoter or a school leader gets picked up by the police and arrested for something that happens inside a school, which is tricky. If a child falls down and or unfortunately breaks his or her arm, you don't arrest the principal and create these are all practical issues that need to be looked into. But again, these are all not these are all not to do with changes. It's to do with the interpretation of the law. The other big problem is the interpretation. You have an act, you have a rule, you have but interpreting of that in different districts, right down at a district education officer level, is all inconsistent.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I don't have a straight answer to give you.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
think
knew
we
when
need
I
to
was
just
asking
relook.
this question that it's not as straightforward. Otherwise, it would have been done. It's a multi-layered problem, right? So liberalization could be a great word to say, hey, let's liberalize the industry. liberalize the sector, but that would also bring about a lot of other, problems which are associated with it. Uh, Without getting too much political, I'll ask you a political question. Why is education so politicized in our country?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. I think
You just, I'm asking you this question from anything goes wrong, your principal is arrested, the promoter is arrested, and I know it's a very emotional issue, but somehow it has to be looked at more logically than, just pure emotions.
yeah, I mean, let's look at it in different
I
stages.
want to rephrase this. I want to rephrase
Sure,
this.
sure.
So this is one example. The other example I'll give you. Anything goes wrong, smallest thing that goes wrong in the school, it will become headlines. But all the good things that the schools are doing will never become headlines. So why is there so much negative part, or why is putting negative headlines about schools so
See,
celebrated and not the good part? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of people who are in the education field and they are not doing it for profit. They're just doing it because they are passionate, they want to make a difference. Of course, there are bad actors, and which is there in all sectors, not just in education. But when education is concerned, the focus is always on the bad actors and not the 99.9% of the other.
Yeah, so that is something which I must say it's not just centered on the education sector. I think people love bad news. Bad news sells.
And
TRPs
then
are
it
the
is
highest.
also associated with children, so the impact is even more.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, people, it's like a clean collar concept, right? When you have a good white collar, no one comes and pats you and says, "Well done, you have a nice clean collar."
Yeah.
But उसमें छोटा सी दाग हो,
Yeah.
you come and pick it up and say, "Hey, look, your collar's got a problem," right? So I think that's something which is very, very centered around not just education but across. But you're right, we need to celebrate the good things.
Yeah.
And in fact, that bureaucrat that I talked about, the ex-secretary of education, has started a platform called Nexus of Good, simply with this one purpose, that it's time to highlight good things that is happening in this country.
Wow.
So can people start highlighting good things, make good celebrated?
Do you know him well enough?
Very well, yes.
Can I call him for the podcast?
Yes, of course.
This entire mind shift, because that's what I want to know, right? If one person can change and go to the other extreme of celebrating the goodness, then I'm sure through the podcast, through media, we can bring about change in many people.
Absolutely. So I will definitely tell him about this.
Yeah.
But so the question is, you love to highlight the not so good things. Unfortunately, that's a problem in this country. But back to your question on politicizing education, there are many stages to this, right? There was a stage where one were told that politicians did not want to encourage education because having an illiterate citizen in a world which is not connected to through digital media many years back is easier to get
or manipulate
swayed as a vote bank, right? That is one of the rumors that spread, that there were politicians who prevented education from moving. Then we moved into a stage where education started to get known because of digital connect. The world started getting connected. So obviously it led to more knowledge, more learning, education came in. But then came the whole transitionary phase. Let's look at how mobility phones happened in this country. Could we have ever had mobile phone connections and towers by shutting off landlines? No. Right? Landlines existed.
Yeah.
Everybody, in fact, we used to wait for years to get a landline connection in our generation. But when the mobility started coming in, where it is 2G, right up to 5G, landlines didn't get stopped. They just created a parallel system.
Yeah.
And that parallel system reached a point where the masses realized that, hey, this is better than landlines. And they started to shift.
And now nobody has landline anymore.
Correct. And that is what we need to do. So in education also, I think it's a very human resource intensive sector. Right? And therefore, you must understand that teachers, for example, in government schools are also very heavy influencers of vote banks. So it's good to have teachers who have a certain hold on maybe 100, 200, 300 families.
Yeah.
And therefore what happens? You probably do not want to do some things to upset the apple cart. I know of states and cities where they wanted to bring in biometrics to start tracking attendance. And there was a pushback. There was a full-blown pushback saying that no, it has to be through paper. Now, which person in a sane mind would prevent a technological way of tracking attendance.
Yeah.
But at that level, they don't want to. So that's politics again. So there are many of these examples which are they're trying to change it,
Yeah.
but slow and steady.
Yeah.
So
I like your example of when mobile phone network grew, landlines disappeared. And I think by what Arise is doing and what a lot of other school owners and entrepreneurs are doing, I think create a system so amazing, right, that the bad part of the system disappears automatically.
Correct.
Right? So I think that the answer somewhere is there, that we as even unaided schools, we need to design schools in such a way that the focus is only on the goodness of what it brings to
correct.
the table.
And that's why I urge you to read the Fee Regulation Act of states like Uttar Pradesh and Haryana, where Arise was very much involved. And some of our past, the Arise leadership, the presidents, past presidents of Arise is involved, of the governing board is involved. And it's such a brilliantly created document because it's something that takes care of all stakeholders. So nobody wants blind increase of fees to happen just for the parent to get stretched. But there is a mid path that can be worked out, which everybody makes, so that's the kind of open-mindedness that one needs to see. Now the other point, and you sorry, I'm kind of cutting you.
Please go ahead.
You spoke about there's so many people out there who are doing good work. Unfortunately, we also have these good people not wanting to talk about it. And I have a pretty favorite line, which it's my own coined word, I think. If you don't blow your trumpet, people will use it as a spittoon. So blow your trumpet. If you're doing something good, talk about it, because you need to inspire the next person and the next person. It has to become viral.
Yeah.
But no one does that. Some of the best people who do so much of good work in education doesn't talk about it.
I think that's got to do with the personality type of educators.
Maybe, but unfortunately, you have to keep your personality out and do it for the larger good of the society.
Maybe they need more people from advertising.
Maybe you need to get them on the podcast, which is why I urge you to try and understand how to identify some of these people, bring them to this chair, talk to them and make them talk about it, and amplify it and spread it and replicate it. Because you need to replicate it. I mean, there are so many of them who teach kids under the tree. There are so many of them who teach kids to do well in IITs who are economically weaker section, and they actually help them to. Are they even known? I know quite a few of them. You should get them here and talk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my team, I'll speak to my team and I'll try to identify some of them and get them.
I'll help you there.
Yeah, sure. I'll really appreciate that. So this is probably the last question in the serious part of the podcast. Then we'll move to the much more fun section. For young entrepreneurs or young grads who are watching this and they want to come into, because we discuss so many problems, the good side, the bad side, but there are people who want to genuinely join this sector, either as teachers or say administrators or even owners, who want to start their own venture. What is some piece of advice that you would give them? Because you've seen both the sides. You've seen the unaided, aided side, you've seen some of the government side, how it functions. You meet a lot of school owners. You may be having some key lessons that you want to tell them. Do these things. Then
yeah, interestingly, what's also happening is the generation shift is making us reach a point where we end up learning from them.
Yeah.
Because that's how fast the learnings are happening in the new gen. But no, I really don't have. I think the only advice that I want to give all these folks is, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a basic. Okay, let's assume you're not getting into education. Doesn't matter. But give some part of your time to try and see how you can add value to another human being. Now that adding value can be in multiple ways. Education is a great way to do it.
Correct.
We all have homes. We all have domestic support. Domestic support have got kids. Do something for them. So I think one line I would want to just say is, don't try and reform the world. Just try and reform whatever you can see. Your neighborhood has got enough things to be corrected. Just try and correct that, and then the world will automatically fall in line. So that is the only practical advice I could really give. And I think like I said, it's a double-edged sword, right? You are not able to get into education because of the so many reforms that are required. But I just want them to know that there are people thinking of reforms. India will have to change, and India will change. So it's an area which it'll help to come into the space, because I think you'll get a great combination of peace of mind and also
It's a very fulfilling sector, I was in advertising, it was great. I had a lot of fun, in terms of what I was doing, but the satisfaction that this sector gives you, that, as you said, the peace of mind that, whatever you're doing, you're helping people around you. I think nothing compares. There cannot be any, you can't add any monetary value to that. So
but I'll play a small, I'll just play a small party pooper here. This also happens with age. So when you're in your 20s and 30s, would you think like this is the question? And for you to get into the space in 20s and 30s, you need to have an environment which allows you to really drive that change, both from a peace of mind point of view and economically. And that's where the sector needs to get itself reformed.
Correct.
Because how can you have the next generation, let's say Gen Alpha as you call it, getting taught by a teacher who is many generations removed? So Gen Alpha needs to be taught by a Gen Z. And how will a Gen Z get into the space unless he or she sees excitement in it?
So
that is the shift.
And some economic benefits, right? So I think very well put. You expanded the whole mantra of Mahatma Gandhi slightly more. Mahatma Gandhi says, start with, you need to change. The change needs to start from the man in the mirror, right? So the man that you see in the mirror, he needs to change first, and then the world will change around you. You expanded. They said, not only you, but change your surrounding, and if you can help them in education, it's the easiest way, right? What you just explained. If somebody in your neighborhood or somebody who comes in your house to help you guys out, if you can teach their children or even them, right? Teach them some basic literacy, like we were teaching our house help how to use a touchscreen phone, because she had never used a touchscreen phone. That's education, right? And
that's what I want to emphasize. You don't need to get into the education sector, but add value to some human being in some form. I mean, during COVID, I had the opportunity to teach a couple of children online chess. And I played chess with them. It improved my own. But I got them to learn chess, and I just feel good about it. Now they know chess, so it's just those little things, and with that comes strategy, thinking, moves. It's something.
Awesome. So Vinesh, thank you very much. I think I've learned so much in this podcast. You have no idea. I'm gonna definitely read about the reforms, read about the legislation that you spoke about, Haryana, and whatever they've already made. And I'll read and maybe increase my knowledge a little bit. I'm going to definitely reach out to you to get some really awesome guests that you spoke about, people that you spoke about, and get them as guests. But all in all, it was a huge learning experience for me personally. I'm sure my audience also may have learned a lot. That brings us to the end of yet another episode of Education Matters by JK. Thank you for watching.